these players playing overseas. We're far more advanced than we ever have been. I think about 10 years ago when they would go overseas, we wouldn't get stats, we wouldn't get video. Now it's like they're here. You can just, you can pop in, click on a link. We've got a great basketball analyst in Paul Swanson that sends us information every night, like 4 a.m. He's giving me the update of what happened, all around the globe. And, Cecilia is playing great. I can't believe I just called her Cecilia. Chechi's playing great for Fenerbahce, the team that's in Turkey. What I like is that, much like I talked about with Demiris, Chechi's role has been elevated. And so she's one of the star players for Fenerbahce. And I think that's important, just in terms of where she is. Again, a young player, I think is just 23 years old, kind of coming into her own. Obviously, the big barrier in the past has been, national team commitments, different, the European championships, different things that would keep her from coming. We actually brought her last season. We flew her over. We were getting ready to sign her up, but her ankle, she had sustained an injury in some of the other competitions, and so it just didn't work out for us. But she is, knock on wood, she's healthy. She said that her ankle's, kind of hanging in there, and we talked back and forth. She can't wait to get back to Minnesota. She will be late to training camp, so this is a player that may never see a WNBA training camp, and so that's difficult for the team that has her. But she is somebody that's willing when she gets here to, participate in her role. Great teammate, great person. And so the good news for us is that, bad for Italy, that they did not qualify for the Olympics. They're no longer trying to do so. There's another Olympic qualifying tournament in February that we're going to be going to. We're going to be in Serbia, but it's all around the globe. But Italy is out of it. And so unfortunate for Chechi and her country, but good for us in that, when she's done with, her play in Turkey, then she will be able to report to Minnesota and stay here, and be here for this season. So we're really looking forward to that and her having a big role for our team. Great question.
Good. That's fantastic. If you need an Italian interpreter, I'm in.
Really good to know.
If she just needs a really authentic plate of spaghetti, I'm also in.
Okay.
So, yeah, keep us posted for sure. You're in too, Jana. Jana's in also.
What about us? Yeah.
Right. That's great. Good.
Really
fantastic.
cool.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cara.
Yeah, I'm going to let you guys keep going, but thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be up here, and thanks all of you guys again.
Thank you so much, Cara Quinn. Thank you, Cara.
Cara's name might be the first four-letter word that I mispronounced. So that's bad. All right. As promised before the break, you shared something with me right before we started that sort of shocked me about my other basketball heroine, which is Lindsay Whalen. And you were talking about defense. And I remember Lindsay Whalen like I remember most things. I mean, there's a lot of things are true, and maybe some things weren't. I remember Lindsay as this, she was so hungry to play defense she couldn't sleep at night. Not true?
Well, so how this came to be was we were talking about the Gophers, and we talked about the game today, and I said that the difference for Lindsay Whalen coach teams, which I thought I would never say, is that they play great defense. And Lindsay will tell you this. I think she's pretty self-deprecating when it comes to it. She's not as bad as she says, but defense was not necessarily first and foremost. If you think about her time with the Gopher program, when they went to the Final Four, I know that Pam Borton really cared about defense, but I don't know that Lindsay and Janelle shared her passion for the defense. And then when Lindsay was drafted to Connecticut, Mike Tebow is not known for his passion for defense, but rather his passion for offense. And so she's really rather conditioned to appreciate offense. And those were probably her best contributions. And we sort of, as I mentioned to Jana, that when Lindsay played here, we sort of managed the situation. She wasn't awful, but she wasn't great. She wasn't ever in the running for Defensive Player of the Year, or first team or second team or honorable mention. But what she did, she's smart. She understood that things that she could not do. We were not going to extend our defense as we do now. We were going to play, with Danielle Robinson and Odyssey Sims to play a little more full court pressure. We're going to be in denials a little bit more. That just wasn't what Lindsay did. Frankly, it's not what Simone does. And so we kind of designed our defense to be, we wanted to be team oriented anyway, but it was really important, for Lindsay's success. The thing that Lindsay did exceptionally for a point guard was rebound the ball. she would sacrifice her body to dig out rebounds, and that was really endearing to me. Rebounding, as I said it earlier, we're always going to be a top rebounding team. If we're not going to be a very competitive team, and so we continued to value that with this year's team, but Lindsay's team play a brand of defense that she never played. So it is fascinating to watch the denials and in the passing lane, and it's a big reason why I think that they have a chance to be successful every time they play, because when you defend and rebound, you can win that game, and regardless of who you're playing. If your offense, if you make some shots, right, then it's even better. But I think they hang their hat on their ability to stop people from scoring and be able to play with some flow, and so that was what my comments were based around.
I wasn't a stellar defensive player either, or offensive.
It's hard to find. It's so neither one, huh?
So I struggled,
but it's hard. It's hard to find in this day and age, because you don't build your brand by getting out and denying a wing or denying the elbow. That's not how people that's not how you're not going to make a lot of money. That's what they think. So that these younger players, they think they have to score. Their parents go, how many points you score? It's just, I think for us, if you look at, we value, you look at the players that we've drafted, going all the way back to someone like a Devereaux Peters, being able to impact the game. Nafisa Collier, great example, with deflections, with the ability to rebound the balls. It's a possession game. And when you can impact the game from that standpoint, I find you to be really valuable. And I thought Lindsay, did that part of the defense.
I read something this season, and I don't know if Suhan wrote it or not, but it was in the paper, and you commented on the play of Sylvia Fowles, and she got angry that game, and they called her Angry Sil, or maybe you did. How do we get Sylvia Fowles angry not for society, but just every time she enters a game?
It's hard. I'll be honest with you. It's hard. Angry Sil is just an unbelievable basketball player. She's a relationship person. And so, those that she's in the locker room with, those that she's sharing huddles with, she wants to feel good about who she's sharing it with, and probably a little too nice at times. You need her to impose her will more often. And we hit a tough stretch. I want to say we lost 3 games in a row, maybe it was 4. I don't remember. And I always, as a coach, I'm like, hey, when you guys are tired of losing, I'll know. When you're tired of losing, I will know. You will get leadership that's out of this world. You will get effort that's out of this world, because you want to stop the bleeding. And at the time that was written, we needed Sil to impose her will to help us stop the bleeding. And she just had enough and said, hey, I'm going to show you what it takes. I don't have a good answer for you. How do you get that every single night? Maybe it's not realistic. But if you get it on most nights, then you have a chance to be a pretty darn good team, because Sylvia Fowles is not even close, the best center in the world. And she improves. Yep. The great thing about Sil is that she wants to improve. She wants you to tell her something else that she needs to add. Right now, you guys saw between 2018 and 2019, she moved away from the basket more. She took more perimeter shots. Yep. And had a really good balance. Doesn't want to fall in love with it, because your bread is buttered on the inside. That's where you're just going to terrorize people. But it is nice not to be pounded on with 3 people every single possession, so that you'd be able to come out and make an elbow jumper, which I thought she did a great job. Walt Hopkins spent a lot of time with Sil, but Sil gets all the credit. She just wants to improve. This year, the big thing that she wants, and this is not as easy as working on your shot, working on being able to pass the ball. She wants the ball in her hands, away from the basket more. Again, that life down there is a tough life, and it probably has a short shelf life. So if we want Sil to enjoy basketball longer, then you have to, get her in those places that are a little more enjoyable. Mm-hmm. And so, that's my job as a coach, is to how do I keep them interested? How do I keep them kind of moving, in the right direction? And so, giving Sil that responsibility away from the basket is something we're looking to add.
You just mentioned something that I think maybe can dive a little bit more into you, because you mentioned 2 things. You said, well, I'm just a coach, or I'm not just a coach, which you're not. You just mentioned losing 3-4 games in a row, and I don't know what that must feel like to coach
terrible.
Cheryl. It's terrible. But you come from a place...
It's bad for the kid, the dogs. It's just...
We're sorry over here.
It's awful.
When you have a team, like Maya Moore said, that their bare minimum is winning 25 games, and you have a fan base, including myself, that our bare minimum is like home game playoffs, let me know when we get to the finals. And then you bounce into a season, pun intended, where you lose 3-4 games in a row. What is it inside you that then says, I stay with this team, I sign a multi-year deal with this team as both its coach and general manager? Why stick around?
Well, because we lost 3-4 in a row every season that I've been here. Every season. The 2010, a lot more than 3 or 4 in a row. Who was there in 2010? Anybody? Yeah. Sorry about that. We were trying. But every season, every journey has that difficult patch. You try not to have too many of them. So even the years we won a championship, if you go back and look, we would lose 3 or 4 in a row, and it would be defining. And so you knew when it hit, right? It's awful. It's awful for everybody, that's competitive. You can do better. But it just happens sometimes. You get slippage. Go ahead.
Well, maybe I should rephrase the question. And this is a great team. You've rebuilt this team through one season, and there's a lot of promise to come. But it's fair to say you're not the dynasty that you were 3-4 seasons ago. If you're coming down off the dynasty, what makes you hungry now to stay?
To keep doing it. I'll be really honest with you. I'm very motivated. I kind of grew up on Pat Summitt at Tennessee, a long-term level of success, of being elite. They didn't win a championship every year. UConn, the San Antonio Spurs, 20 years of just being successful. Again, they've only won 4 or 5 championships in San Antonio, but they're sort of the model franchise. And so that motivates me, not bouncing around and saying, hey, what's the next opportunity? But staying. I'm a little more old school that, I'm not, as long as I feel good about the direction of our leadership, that who I report to, as long as I feel good about this fan base, then, I feel like it's still a good thing. And so I want to ride it as long as we can and see what else we can do.
In a video that the Lynx organization shared with fans on social media, we shared it on Breaking the News because I'm just an unapologetic fan. You mentioned something.
I'm a huge fan of Breaking the News.
Thank you so much.
It is incredible.
You can all be fans too and watch it at 6:30 weeknights on Cara 11.
Yes.
But in all seriousness, in that video, there's a clip in that video. If you have not seen it, go watch it, where you're talking to your team in the locker room and you tell them how old you were when Title IX passed. And you talk about why it's important for people that they don't know that are in our lived history or that are in our history, the shoulders we stand upon as women. Do it for them. Why were you sharing that kind of story? Why do you talk about those kinds of things? You do it on Twitter. You are relentless in your fight for equality, and I appreciate it and I admire it. But tell others why you do it.
At some point, I started to realize the value of those that came before us, and learning our history, learning that women were told no when there might be women here that wanted to play the sport that I get to coach and make a living at. They wanted to play, but there wasn't a team for them. They were told no. And so I wanted to make sure that our players understand the past, educate them on the history of why they have the opportunity that they have to be sitting there together in that locker room, to earn a paycheck playing basketball. So I think that's important. I think it makes them value it. I hope. And just, I think it's important. I think it's important that, the idea that, we know that this wasn't the case, even 10 years ago, how much has changed in terms of opportunities. We have such a long way to go. But I think that education piece, and again, it's more than basketball, that I knew that we were going to run into an arena, that was going to be filled with people that share the passion that our players have, but weren't as fortunate to be born when they were born. People that were absolutely maybe just as talented as some of the players that we have, that just never had a chance to grow in the sport that we all get to do every day. So I never want them to take those things for granted.
As you say that, we are just 16 days away from the deadline to get a CBA done. to get a collective bargaining agreement signed by players who are asking for at least a bit more transparency from the NBA to see what they're worth, what's going on. Are you eager are you confident a deal will get done before end of year, or what do you think?
Yeah, I can't obviously really comment